Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. One of my favorite things about doing this for the third day in a row is that some of you already know what to do. Greetings from Australia, from Bangladesh. We have some people from Paris, France, blah, blah, blah. There's a bit of everything here. Welcome back, Christian. We love to have you here. You have great questions and we're looking forward to them. And of course, welcome back to our dear speakers. Paul, little introduction in case we have someone new, and where are you joining from?
Excellent, and I think Nick's calling in. I know he's traveling today, so we'll let him jump in. I know he'll have some comments, but welcome back. A quick couple of comments from the last 2 days. On Tuesday, we had a webinar primarily with Nick, and he talked about the SolarCoin mission. The goal is to encourage solar production throughout the world. We're using an incentive system called SolarCoin to reward people for not only producing solar energy, but claiming that solar energy. We think over time that reward, that token, SolarCoin will ultimately have some economic value. And we think that will help encourage renewable energy production worldwide, which we're very excited about. And we certainly encourage anybody who didn't get a chance to see that webinar to see the webinar once it's up and running. We spent some time yesterday where I really tried to walk through currency and define it. It's a slippery topic, and I know that at times it's very confusing. I think the most important thing to take away is that currency is generally a local phenomenon, very much associated with a community, and we think SolarCoin will have a lot of value, not just economic value, but really community value within the SolarCoin community. So we're excited about that as part of bringing the community together. And then today we're really going to focus on some of the logistics of claiming your SolarCoin and that process, and open up to Q&A. We know we'll have some questions probably from the first 2 days as well. So today we're going to have Inga talk a little bit about some of the process, but before we dive in, just let you know that the simplest logistic steps is if you're interested in SolarCoin and joining the SolarCoin community, certainly go to the SolarCoin website. There's lots of information there that will help you. We have a Slack channel, a Slack community, which is more technical in nature. For those of you interested in the technical parts of it, love to have you join in that conversation. And the nice part about Slack is you can see what all of the discussions in the past have been, which is a great way to come up to speed quickly. But first step is, if you're interested in SolarCoin, go to the SolarCoin website. Those of you that are actually interested in claiming coin, one of the first things you have to do, this is the fun language of the cryptocurrency and digital asset world, is you download the wallet. And the wallet is nothing more than a very specialized piece of software that you put onto your phone or your computer, and it allows you to join into the SolarCoin economic community, really the issuance and trading of SolarCoin. It's a piece of software. You'll download it. Once you're downloaded, it will walk you through various steps, various information, and then once that's all done, you will effectively be connected through the wallet to the economic community. Do keep in mind that we take this community very seriously. There are some key attributes that we will require of you. Certainly, you're going to have to give some information that shows that you're a real person. We like that. And we're going to need some specific information to make sure that everybody in the community has been vetted. Very, very important. We're maintaining a high integrity community with lots of transparency. So don't be surprised that they will ask very specific details. All that information is highly confidential. We share that with nobody, nor will we ever share that with anybody. I know that's been in the paper recently, so it will be completely confidential information, but we're required to collect that information for potential regulatory purposes. Downloading the software is very trivial. It's like downloading any kind of software. The one thing I will caution in the digital world, the most important thing, and I cannot stress this enough, we could spend an hour on this one issue, is remember your password, because there is no way to recover passwords. We have a password recovery system, but it's all self-regulated. But if you lose your password, you'll lose access to the wallet. And if you have any SolarCoin in the wallet, you'll lose access to those SolarCoin. There's been all kinds of stories in the digital asset world of people losing hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin because they forgot their passwords. So password is more important than ever in this world. Make sure you have a very robust password management system in mind. Lots of people do things like write it down a couple places and put it in very safe spots. Don't share it with anybody, but also make sure you have that. Because if you lose the password, there's nothing we can do to help you. But once you've downloaded the software, you've gone through all what we call KYC, know your customer stuff, you are up and running and ready to go. And the next step is to start to coordinate those claims with your production. So we have a rule that we give the credit to the owner of the facilities, the owner of the panels, with the exception of small users, which we give the coin to the consumer of the panel. So you walk through those steps, you'll see whether you're qualified or not. And if you are, it's a fairly straightforward process to get registered on. And then you'll see all of the affiliates that we're supported with. I don't know, Nick, if you want to jump in, and if I messed anything up, that would be great.
We also have online Nick that you know from the past 2 sessions. You can't see him because he's on the phone, but he's right there. Nick, hi.
Hi, good morning. Yes, or good afternoon or good evening, depending where you're at. Yeah, Paul, I think you've gotten it fairly straightforward, so I'll try and support on Q&A.
All right, excellent. I guess, Inga, do you want to jump in and talk a little bit more about the program?
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I'm calling in from London, and why I got into this is I got extremely excited about the possibility that we now have a system where we can value social and natural capital, which we haven't had to date. It's almost a sort of holy grail. Putting it on an exchange like Lyca and the others and making it fully exchangeable with regular currency brings these very valuable assets into the financial system. And that, I think, is going to accelerate change and our movement towards a more sustainable and equitable future hugely. But there are, as you say, a number of ways to claim. You can claim directly off the website and create your own wallet, and you can also use affiliates who are accredited, who can handhold for you and help you through the process. It can get quite complex if you've got very large installations and you want to perhaps have custody, have somebody have custody of your SolarCoin or help you through that process. So that's the possibility. But I would like to talk a little more about how, once you've claimed your SolarCoin, now you've got your mitts on a significant number of SolarCoin, what you're going to do with them. And there are a lot of things you can do. Paul, you may want to talk about some of the more traditional routes of extending the network and how you could use it in, for instance, paying bus fares. I know that sounds a bit of a stretch. And then come back to me and I'll explain to you where the paid forward model works.
Excellent, thank you. Well, certainly the 2 items I stressed yesterday was when we come to a currency is supporting the community. One is that it's a local, well, currency is always a local phenomenon. It's an exchange between people that are in an economy. The global economy is very large, but in these communities like SolarCoin, it's a much smaller community. You may in fact be exchanging with somebody across the world, but you're sharing the mission. There are other ways to support it. Certainly, we're trying to encourage solar production, and so we want to reward that. But there are people out there that want to support the mission that maybe don't have access to panels or they're not generating solar power. And they say, how can I help? And the best way to help is actually to help create the network. The second piece I talked about, the value of a currency, the value of that network is the number of participants, the number of agents. In economic speak, we call that the number of N's, the N number of participants. And you can join the community by essentially accepting SolarCoin. So if you have a digital website, you can take SolarCoin in exchange for your services or goods or services instead of maybe traditional currency, what we call fiat currency. That's a great way to do it. If you're in a local community where they're very much supporting SolarCoin and there are a lot of people with panels, you may in fact be able to take SolarCoin on a local basis. A cup of coffee is is $3 fiat, but $2 fiat and one solar coin would be another way of supporting it. So creating a demand side for the solar coin is very helpful. So anybody out there that wants to support it, if you have any commercial ability to take solar coin, that will help us increase the size of the network, will increase the value of this solar coin over time, and that we think will serve back to help encourage production. So creating demand for solar coin is a great way to support it. And then in turn, what you'll have is solar coin, and you have the option of trading solar coin or paying it forward with what Inga is going to talk about. The other use case, which I think I'm really excited about, is if you're in a government agency of any kind, you can start to accept solar coin as a way of encouraging economic behavior. So if you have some of your buses are hybrid, or some of your buses are maybe e-powered electric buses, if you can create a way that you can issue bus tokens in exchange for solar coin, but they only work on hybrid buses or buses that support renewable energy. Or if you're a government agency and you're trying to increase other support of renewable energies, you can create tokens from solar coin or use solar coin in exchange for that. That's another way of continuing to extend the solar coin network to other parts of the renewable energy. So there's lots of ways to get involved even if you're not producing solar energy, and we can't encourage that enough. That helps us grow our network, which we think will grow the value of the community, which will just increase the incentive to continue to produce solar energy. And I know everybody on this call is very passionate about renewable energies. So you can get involved in the community. You don't have to produce solar energy to do it. You can support it in other ways, all with great economic benefit to you.
Thank you very much, Paul. I think I need to start taking solar coin or making solar coin or minting it. I'm going to ask you a few questions. I know, Inge, that you're going to go back and explain to us why we should pay it forward, but let me just ask a few questions and then we can move on. Okay, so Paul, let's say that I am a producer, and I'm a producer that is maybe not a very large producer. I'm off grid. Can I claim it? This is one of the questions that we have live. Can I claim my solar coin now if I'm off grid?
The answer is yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's say I'll go to your website and I start typing in my whatever, who I am and where I'm located. What information do you need in terms of verifying how much energy I'm producing it or when?
Nick, I assume you're still there. You're going to know a bit more of the technical details.
Sure. Generally, we are trying to gather 3 sets of information, what we call a KYC, a KYD, and a KYE. KYC is know your customer, so we'll need to know kind of who you are as a person for regulatory reasons. Then we'll need to know your device, your facility. So, how big is your solar installation? Do you have interconnect documents or proof of the fact that it actually exists and has been existing and generating energy for at least the last 6 months? A figure to note is that energy is credited production back to January 2010. And then the last piece of information would be how much energy has been generated to date. So if you were off grid, as for Belen's question, what we need to do is find some way of verifying that actual production occurred. And so that involves primarily putting information into the websites. Typically, we would use an estimated mechanism for estimating the solar production. So if we can come up with the nameplate capacity or the rated capacity of the facility, we can make an estimate of how much that facility may have generated with some margin.
I think we've lost him a little bit.
Yeah, I know some of that was, let me just run back through it. So we're trying to get 3 kinds of information. The first one is often referred to as KYC, know your customer. There, we just do that for regulatory purposes. That information is highly confidential. We don't share that with anybody, but we are going to ask some questions to make sure you're a real person because we want to keep the integrity of it. The second thing is that we do need to understand your production capability and facility. So we will ask specific questions about panels and inverters and things like that, so we have an idea of your capacity. And then the third is that we need some way to verify the actual production, and there we try to make it as easy as possible, and we use estimated, so we don't need precision, and we do reward coins back to production back to January of 2010. So if you've had a facility for a number of years, and we can document all of the things we just talked about. We will actually give you SolarCoin for the production you've already had. So it's not just from this moment forward. You can do a claim backwards. Obviously, we do need some level of verification to keep the integrity high, and we're trying to avoid all forms of fraud. But we think it's very straightforward. And so customer information, production capability, and then actual energy produced is what we're going to try to get that information from you.
How long does it take, Paul, from beginning to end? If I start applying now, how long does it take until I can start claiming? I appreciate that you can go back on time, but like the actual paperwork, the bureaucracy, so to speak, how long does it take?
It should not take very long at all. You should, I don't know if Nick's here the exact estimate, but the steps are not that complicated, not that hard. Yeah. It's probably more of making sure you have access to the information than actually us processing anything.
Correct. Right now, things are processed on a once-a-month basis. So if someone submits their data and everything is good, they should get the grant around the end of the month. And we're working on accelerating that time to feedback. So if you submit your records and data and nothing happens, don't worry. You're probably in being processed and you'll get a response back. And then after that first monthly grant, the next grants come out on a 6-month basis.
Does it matter where I'm based? Sorry, go on, Paul.
I'm just going to jump in and say, don't be too sensitive about the time because we're not rewarding from the moment you get registered. We're recording from the moment you can document. So if it takes us another couple of weeks to get something done, you don't lose any coin in that time. There's no loss of reward because we'll go back in time. So if it takes us a couple, 3 or 4 weeks to get something processed, you're not losing anything. So it's not time sensitive that way.
And does it matter where I'm based? There's a lot of questions about, what if I'm in this country or that country?
Yeah, I can take that. Yeah, the program is global, currently rolled out in 50 countries. The only restrictions with countries to date are anything under the U.S. Treasury OFAC restrictions, trade restrictions, and or if your country itself has banned or has made cryptocurrencies fully illegal, we tend not to grant there because we try to comply with all local laws and regulations. However, should those laws and regulations be changed or amended in the future to accept or recognize blockchain types of technologies, you can still grant retroactively. So talk to your local legislature or politician.
Okay, so it doesn't really matter. How can I claim that? If I don't want to do it myself, can I hire someone to do it for me? Can my accountant do it for me or whomever? I don't know who would be the right person / institution.
Yes, they can. Typically what happens is some of the larger corporate customers can do one of two things. They could either pick an individual who may know cryptocurrency on their behalf more and claim on their behalf. If that occurred, if someone is helping you and they're not the facility owner, then we need a power of attorney to make sure that the assignment of that right is proper and linked to the actual owner. The other mechanism is to go on to the SolarCoin website. There are groups of people in various countries called affiliates who will help in this process. The affiliates will help with onboarding of the claims, and there should be no charge for that. Right now, there are 3 global affiliates. We're anticipating having probably 10 to 15 in the coming weeks, and our target is by the end of the year to have 200 affiliates around the world to help in that process.
And these affiliates work for free?
What they do is, from the claimant perspective, the person claiming SolarCoin, there should be no charge. The affiliates themselves receive 10% of the first year's SolarCoin claim. And this is done to decentralize the market and to have the program run at as much of a local level as possible.
Okay, and one more question before we allow Inga to give us also her presentation. Where do I declare my earnings, my crypto earnings? What is, in terms of tax purposes, whatnot?
Right. First of all, I'll give the caveat that we don't give tax or legal advice, so an individual within a country should seek that. That being said, every country has different regimes and treatment. The G20 group has generally come to a consensus to treat cryptocurrency as property. And so depending on the country you're in, what effectively happens is you have received income, either as a corporate or individual, at the rate or the market price of the solar coin at the time of transfer. And so that's how it would be treated from an income perspective generally. But that's all for the individual to self-report.
Okay, so I think at least, I think the steps have been clarified. That would be my thinking. You guys keep sending the questions, but the questions that I see now are a little bit more general, about the value again. So okay. What I'm going to allow is I'm going to allow Inga to give her presentation first. Do you need your PowerPoint, Inga?
Yes, please.
Yes,
sure.
We'll put up your PowerPoint. We'll hear what you have to say, and then we'll start also again doing, the Q&A. Just a reminder, you guys, we're recording. We do have the PowerPoints, so we will send this to you, the ones from the day before and the day before, and we will do some Q&As after. And Nick, sounds like you have something else before.
Yeah, just one thing. It may be interesting for people to hear Inga's background, because she didn't explain a little about her own background. She's a fairly remarkable person. So that's it.
I would agree with that statement. Actually, I can't believe the amount of things that she's done in her life. All right, Inga, tell us about you, tell us about what you do, tell us about what you know, please.
Okay, well, just a quick one. That's very sweet of you to say that, but I have a corporate background in restructuring and as a strategist, and I've worked on a lot of big restructurings in the aviation and gas and power industries. But then I restructured a not-for-profit, particularly working with women in the developing world, and then I jumped ship. Far less lucrative, but certainly very, very rewarding. So have done a lot of work at grassroots and seen what real life is like for many, many people. I've had the privilege of advising a number of governments and also being the senior policy advisor to a group called the Elders, who were retired statesmen and women, people like Kofi Annan, President Carter, Mary Robinson, Group Brundtland. And that was during the COP21 process and the getting to the sustainable development goals. So it was a very, very exciting time.
Inga, let's do one thing before you continue, because some people are getting a bad echo. Can you just take everything off and see if we can hear you better just from the if you talk just to your laptop?
Yeah, is that better?
I think so. You guys take them off. Can you hear us?
Let's see. Is that any better?
Yeah, I think so. Let's do it like this. These words you're talking, because we're getting some people saying that, they can't hear you properly, and that would be a real shame. And Engineer Nadia, don't worry, you will get the files in PDF. Solenko, thank you for letting us know that you couldn't hear Inga properly. Hopefully now it will help. Thank you.
Has that solved the problem?
I think I can hear you more clearly. So let's just go with this, and I will let you know if we have an issue.
Okay, great. Well, yes. So as I say, having had that experience, it's also then having worked at Liquor and have the privilege of working with people like Nick and with Paul. It came to me that there is a really wonderful way of paying the solar coin forward. And I would, if we could go to the next slide, I'll just, I think that one of the interesting things that we're finding in this whole segment is that we hear so much about negativity and we hear about all the dark side, but actually when you hear people like Joe Lubin, who co-founded Ethereum and Consensus, that this is the energy that's actually behind it, that it is a revolution for good and not just for money, and it is about changing the world. And that is why I'm putting my energy into blockchain, because I do think we're at a place where there's going to be huge systemic change across the piece that is going to accelerate a more sustainable future. So I'm going to have you experience something first, because there's nothing better than experiential learning. So don't turn off.
There is no technical problem, by the way. We were just doing it for effect, just to let you know.
Absolutely. So imagine if you were one of the 1.3 billion people without electricity, you would not be able to participate in this. Imagine if your electricity had just gone off or your phone wasn't able to be charged. Imagine how that would feel. And I think in this day and age, when we've got entering such a digital era, it's unacceptable that we have so many people without power. So the vision is that for those of you who have vast amounts of SolarCoin or even small amounts of SolarCoin, that if we aggregate that SolarCoin into a collaborative effort, we can really impact the way we can really impact having electricity at the grassroots. So if we go to the next one, I'll show you how we can do that. We've partnered with PowerOne, which is a German impact investor. They have 10 years of immense experience in managing solar, and they have a fund which is basically two parts. One is a foundation, and the other is an impact investment fund. So for the minimum ticket there is 250K, and those who participate in that, part of their profits goes into the foundation. We're also partnering with grassroots solar producers and an education piece, people like Solar Sisters, who actually educate women to be able to repair solar panels. So we're actually trying to build an ecosystem where you can pay it forward. And to Paul's point earlier about utilizing SolarCoin throughout the system, we're wanting to do that so that when you utilize your SolarCoin, have bought solar panels for people or created the system at the grassroots where people can have solar, they can also pay for their solar and their electricity with SolarCoin. So you're actually continuing that whole cycle. And what it does is it brings not only the natural capital element into things, but it also brings social solutions into the heart of economic activity. So we're getting layered value here. And it's a beautifully simple process, really. I think it's immensely exciting because of its simplicity. So if we look at the next one, you'll get a sense of the benefits of this. For as a donor or as an investor, there is no capital outlay. I mean, as we've said, SolarCoin is a bit like air miles. It sits on top of everything, and it's free, gratis, and for nothing. There's immense PR and CSR value in this because more and more companies are being really scrutinized on how they are supporting the SDGs and the environmental goals. And of course, it's sustainable because it's a continuous circle of impact, and it's very measurable. So we've been talking to Acumen, who are one of the best in the business, about measuring the impact, so we will know very clearly how it's impacting people. And then we're wanting to create an extension of the community where people are participating in the decision making as to how this gets implemented, because it's often going to be, if you're in India, you'll want to implement some of it in India. If you're in Pakistan or if you're in Brazil, you by and large want to do something local. So we can provide that type of support and information. And of course, from an environmental point of view, it mitigates CO2. It's really interesting from a data collection point of view, and protects nature. And from the recipient point of view, which is where my personal passion lies, I'm a great fan of the best for the poorest. It's about health, because if you're not burning kerosene and getting fumes, it's immensely beneficial for health. It's beneficial for education, because imagine you come home at night, you have no light, you can't study. For general productivity, and it also models the pay it forward and circular economy. So I think it's enormous upside, and I would just so encourage you to donate your SolarCoin or some of your SolarCoin to making this happen, because I think that's how we really are making a difference in the world, not only with SolarCoin, but it's doing double duty. And I suppose in relation to, if we go to the next slide, I think, again, back to the conversation we had earlier about registering, we've tied up with SolarLux, Thomas, unfortunately, is traveling, otherwise he would have been on this call too. They're an affiliate, and they certainly can help in the process, and they can also keep wallet safe, can provide PR and strategic support, and help in building your own ecosystem around that. But the next, I think the final point I'd like to make is that really it's in context. We very rarely take the context of peace and security. We are so, particularly in the environmental movement, we're so focused on environment. We often don't link it into social, and we particularly don't link it into security and peace building. And this huge inequity is one of the very big drivers of conflict. And conflict last year cost us 13% of global GDP, something like $14 trillion. So we really need to work on these grassroots and fundamental root causes. And this is a wonderful way to do it that has got plus, plus, plus for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Inga. So here's the thing. You will tell you now exactly how you have to claim your coin, and then you pledge a certain amount or a certain percentage, ongoingly, to one for one. I think this is like a win-win. What that means is more of that money gets reapplied back into sort of like the people that are not electrified at the moment, and more, there is more solar everywhere, which means the value of SolarCoin hopefully goes up. Okay, I'm going a few steps upwards there, but just the community gets larger, I suppose. And this is where I go back to Paul and Nick, and I ask the questions that are down here. Sorry, I'm having a little bit, oh, here we go. Can I exchange solar coins for other cryptocurrency through Bittrex? I don't know what Bittrex are, so perhaps you can explain and respond to that. Who wants to take it? Nick?
I will, sure. Bittrex is a crypto exchange, and it allows for the trading of SolarCoin into other crypto currencies. So the answer is yes. And there's a list of current exchanges that support SolarCoin on a website called coinmarketcap.com.
So do I have to pay fees for buying solar coins? If I am, as a person, want to help the community by buying some solar coin, how do I go about doing that? And do I have to pay any fees?
That is outside of the SolarCoin Foundation. So we're an open ecosystem, a little bit like Bitcoin. And so that would depend on the exchange or the mechanism that you wish to engage with a third party. All we can say as wearing a SolarCoin Foundation hat is, make sure you do your due diligence on who that counterparty is, whether it's an individual or an institution or a website.
That sounds complicated, Nick. How do I mint coin?
If you have SolarCoin already, you can download the full SolarCoin QT wallet, which is the desktop wallet, from the website solarcoin.org. And at that point, you can do something called staking. So inside of the software itself, you'll hit a button. At that point, you receive up to 2% return on the SolarCoin that you do own. That's a minting process.
Will SolarCoin extend to hydrogen production and wind production? Hydrogen is a new developing fuel. Ross here is, making the point about other sources or other fuels such as hydrogen.
Sure. At this point, we have not looked into that. The original thinking and thesis behind the coin was that different sources of energy have different production costs, and so we're strictly based on solar and solar energy at this point.
Question here that I think you will understand that I'm a little bit confused by. I think I understand, but I may not. What about SolarCoin Cash? There was a Bitcoin Cash, right? I think.
Correct, and that was a fork or a shift in the Bitcoin software, what's called a hard fork in the software. In theory, as an open protocol, SolarCoin Cash could be developed or evolved. Again, if the community wants to do that, that could happen. Right now, the SolarCoin software is, pretty much we're happy where it's at. With the next iteration, for those who are technical on the call, moving towards the latest version of the Bitcoin core software supporting SegWit and potential Lightning networks. Sorry, that's a little technical for a lot of people, but hopefully it answers the person's question.
It went right above my head, but I hope someone out there understood it properly.
Okay. Okay.
A fork? I mean, anyway, I'm not even going to get into that. Okay,
yeah, that's a little techy.
He says, Christian, my favorite, what kind of community engagement creation do you do? Are there online forums to exchange experiences around solar, roundtables, lobbying initiatives for solar? That is what we do, Christian. What do you envision the community to do and how to develop infrastructure within it?
Sure. Well, we're an open, a very open type of community and structure based on the software and the planning. So there's a Slack group with roughly 2,000 members in it. There's also a more technical.
What is a Slack? Explain to people.
Yeah, sure.
Actually know,
Slack,
but most people don't.
Yeah, sure. Slack is a piece of software for community chatting and collaboration, similar to a forum or a community forum. And the SolarCoin Plaque, which there's a link to it on the website, is a third-party open community where there are discussions around solar energy, regulation, technology. We have technologists who are running Raspberry Pis, people writing software for inverters, etc. So there's a very interesting community of people dealing with everything from the economics to the technology and the deeper implications of blockchain in the energy sector.
Anyone that is on the audience that feels like their grandparent when you're trying to explain Facebook, please just say yes on the chat. Because I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I do feel like my grandma, I promise you. She's 93. Okay. Okay, here Raju makes a point that I'd like to bring up that says SolarCoin is better than Bitcoin because it's supported by the sun. Yay, go Raju, we like your thinking. How are the solar coins priced? And there is at least two questions about value and price. I think maybe some people are new to the conversation. Maybe some people still haven't understood it. Paul, do you care to maybe here and tell us how the magic is going to go? So I want to hear two things. I want to hear how it all works, but I'm also going to hear what needs to happen for this solar coin that is now maybe in cents to get to, say, $20. I want to know, what do I need to do? What do we as the community need to do to get it to $20?
Yeah, I think Nick would be upset with me if I didn't start by saying we give no investment advice. We try to educate people as much as possible. So I don't want anyone to think that we're predicting the price of SolarCoin. We're not. We don't know how. We can't. But I will make a couple of comments. Is that in history, when a community, as a community grows, the value of the currency of that community generally increases in value. Doesn't mean that it's guaranteed, but if history has shown that as communities get bigger, more active, and there's more trading in that exchange, the value of the currency tends to go up. And we think that will happen, although we can't guarantee it. We can't forecast it. We don't know. So how do we all work together? It's the key is the community. Nick can't do anything about it. I can't do anything about it. Inga can't. Alone can't. Nobody can individually, but collectively as a community, we can increase the value of the community, and as a result, the value of the currency will probably go up. How do we do that? It's all the things we talked about. It's certainly getting involved from a solar production, claiming your coins. That is a very good start. Supporting the coins by accepting them in exchange is a very good part. Getting governments in where they support it and they let you pay your electric bill in SolarCoin is a great part. So those of you connected to governments, you want to encourage them to take SolarCoin as payment to energy because it's encouraging this. So any activity that increases the economic value of the community, increases the economic exchange in the community, increases the size of the community, should increase the value of the currency. Now, how is it priced? It is priced in a market. There are a couple places where it's traded. That is set by the market participants. That is really price. Driving the value is really what we can focus on. The price will kind of take care of itself over time.
Okay, so maybe just make sure, because I actually, a lot of people said yes, you know, so I'm not alone here. So explain to us, please, how could a currency like Bitcoin to go from like cents, really, that was worth it, to $10,000, then $20,000, and when everyone was like kind of creeping in, going, yeah, this sounds like a really easy money maker, drops down to $10,000. How does that happen?
Yeah, I think you've got, let's separate sort of what's going on in the market, and then I'll bring that back to specifically to SolarCoin. But if you take a look at something like Bitcoin, there are two people that are buying and selling Bitcoin. There are what we'll call speculators, which is what everyone who thinks it's going to go from 10,000 to 20,000 for no other reason than it's just they think it will go. That is generally a speculator. They're speculating on the price of Bitcoin. And there are some great speculators in the world that understand crowd psychology, understand how securities get traded, and they have a sixth sense about this. And I think some of those have made a lot of money in Bitcoin. The rest of us, where we are just guessing, I think that you end up transferring your money to those people that are really good at it. Unless you're really good at it, you got to be careful. So that's the one type of demand. The second type of demand is something we'll call transactional demand. So if I actually accept Bitcoin on my website, and people would rather trade Bitcoin than fiat for my goods or services, that creates demand for Bitcoin. They go out and they buy Bitcoin, or they earn Bitcoin, and then they turn around and sell it. That's your transactional demand. Well, at the moment in Bitcoin, the speculative demand, the speculative participants overwhelms the transactional by, I would guess, 10 to 1, maybe even 100 to 1. So the volatility in Bitcoin is driven by the speculative nature of the people interested in Bitcoin. It goes up and down because they want it to go up and down. No individual can manipulate it. I don't think anybody's big enough. But if a lot of people decide that Bitcoin's the future and they rush in and buy it, that price will go up. If they get disenchanted, or what's happening now, because it's going down, a lot of people that thought it was going up are now either concerned, maybe panicked, maybe they've lost some money. They want to sell because they've mistimed it. And so speculative demand is what's driving the current price of Bitcoin rather than transactional demand. What Nick and the foundation are trying to do is drive the transactional demand for SolarCoin. We're trying to keep the speculative demand as low as possible if we can, because what we want is fundamental value to build over time because of the transactional demand, which is what we talk about, claiming your SolarCoin, and then people coming along and accepting SolarCoin in exchange for services or goods, governments supporting it over time. We think that will increase the transactional demand for SolarCoin, and then we're back to, if we do that well over time, the value and the price will go up. So Bitcoin's problem on a short-term basis is there are too many speculators, not enough transactions. For the currency to really live, that transactional demand has to grow.
And of course, there is other issues like the energy inefficiency, etc. There is other issues there as well, but that's very interesting. Inge, I know that you want to talk, and I'm going to leave you now to say what you want. Just wanted to mention, when I met Nick and Inge, I showed to them this really cool article, I suppose. The topic of the article was blockchain conference doesn't accept Bitcoin conference doesn't accept Bitcoin, because it was such a pain, to send it through, and it was so time intensive. So in the end, as a currency, it didn't work very well, really, realistically. Inga, go for it. Tell us.
Yeah, I guess just stepping out a little bit, I think what I see, to be slightly philosophical, is that we're on the edge of the universe, and much the same as we were with the internet. And, so much of this stuff is still going to be developed. And I think that yes, I agree on all of Paul's points about transactions and speculation, but I also think it is an element of symptomatic of a financial system that really people feel isn't serving us terribly well. And we're almost at a tipping point of tolerance. And so that's a lot of that uptake is that, at long last, we may have some way of having a global system that can be democratizing finance. So that's one aspect of. The other aspect, I think, is also to remember not to conflate Bitcoin and SolarCoin. The fundamental difference, and this is the genius of Nick's creation is that to have thought about it's an eco coin, and he thought about the footprint of SolarCoin and designed a SolarCoin that has a 0.0001% footprint of a Bitcoin in terms of energy usage. So it is genuinely an eco coin. And I think that's really important. And it's actually shown the way. I know more and more people are looking at how can they minimize the footprint of coins, and they can take a lesson from the way Nick designed it.
Excellent. Okay, so let me just ask a couple more questions and then we'll finish. You know, it's been 50 minutes, so that's, I think we've covered most things. One question here says, are there any plans to also add solar energy, but that is not tied to electricity? So it would be solar thermal to the SolarCoin reward system?
I'll take that. Yeah, at this point, we're not looking at adding solar thermal because the integrity of issuance is really tied to the megawatt hour. And so unless a solar thermal system has some way of, unless there's a cogen or some other facility that ties out to a measurable megawatt hour output, that is what we're looking for. And those are usually, tied to an inverter. So it's the verification and the integrity of issuance that's the challenge. Now, should there be a mechanism for, let's say, measuring something in joules or some other energy unit and doing a conversion that is reliable and robust and trusted by the community, we could look into that.
Thank you very much. And one more, how big is your network or your community? In other words, how many companies now claim or exchange SolarCoin?
Sure. We have, in terms of claimants and all the rest, a fairly small community measured in the thousands. So we're probably talking, 4,000 or 5,000. In terms of beyond that, we anticipate there are probably a few thousand people to put our growth and our trajectory and expectations in place. We are talking at the SolarCoin Foundation level, and we have to be confidential about it, but we're in talks with some of the world's largest energy companies and monitoring platforms. And our goal is to be in front of, north of 1 million solar installations in the next 12 to 18 months. Those are the goals and the targets. Working with large companies takes time, but as we close those deals and move forward, those announcements will be becoming public. So we're going from a small, let's say, community type of project to a larger scale. And anticipate significant growth in the size of that community and the amount of activity involved.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to finish. There is someone here that says, if you keep on issuing SolarCoin, wouldn't the value of one SolarCoin per megawatt hour go down over time?
Right, and that's a function of the emergent property of currency, and we spoke a little about that yesterday. Paul, I don't know if you want to discuss the phenomena that we've kind of discovered or worked with in currencies, but
yeah,
Jen, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that Nick and I are working on, and we should have this paper done in the next month, or I would think, is go look at what we'll call mature currencies. We've got the euro, we've got a sterling, we've got in the US the dollar, of course, although that network is bigger than just the US. We've got RMB, we've got the yen, Australian dollar. If you go look at these markets, we can actually show that because currency is Greece, it's the mechanism that allows exchange. We measure the dollar value of that currency, and we're getting numbers in roughly about 2,000, call it $2,500 to $3,000 per person adjusted for GDP. It seems to be about the value of currency. It goes up a bit higher. The Australian dollar is probably closer to 4,000, and the Japanese have more currency per individual than any country in the world. We're not 100% sure why, but if we kind of play with that, and you see it, you could see that as the N value goes up, if it's $2,000 per N, you can start to see that the value of this is very much tied to the size of the network. So we're not just saying that because theoretically it makes sense if we go and we measure that on very active, very mature, very well functioning economies across the globe. we're seeing that the value of the currency is somewhat similar in every market. So we think this is kind of a natural phenomenon. So we have great deal of confidence that as the size of the SolarCoin community goes up, the value of that currency will go up. We don't know how long it will take, and we certainly don't want to predict pricing, but we're very confident that the value will go up if we all focus on growing the size of the community.
Excellent. So just before we say goodbye, Paul, Inge, Nick, questions for people out there that may want to start the process of claiming from day one and hopefully giving a percentage, pledging. If they want to get in touch with you guys, can we give away your details so that they can get in touch? Inge, you are the person. I cannot hear you, but you are the
yes, absolutely. There's in fact a slide if you want to put it up, which gives all the context. Very happy to respond. Very happy if you want to donate your SolarCoin. Very happy if you want to buy SolarCoin and donate them. And very happy if you want to be part of a community that is making that sort of impact. I think it was a book that Nick lent me of Hernando de Soto, who said that capital is like energy. It's a dormant value, and bringing it to life requires us to go beyond looking at our assets as they are and think about how they could be. And I think that's what Nick and Paul and others have really stimulated us to do, is to think, yeah, we can do this differently.
So here's what you heard over 3 days, how SolarCoin works, a bit about Bitcoin, a bit about how currencies work. I think today we've gone through the steps of what you need to do. So now it's really up to you guys. This is the time where you need to join the community, hopefully, and make it slowly but surely advance in the right direction. We do, as you know, there was a question here from Raju saying, do we do things about blockchain? Yes, we do. This series was specific about the SolarCoin side of things and how can blockchain be used in terms of payments and reward systems. But we do a lot of other things. Make sure you're signed up on our community. You probably are if you're here. But we, watch out. We will be covering, this blockchain in a lot of depth. And if you have any further questions about SolarCoin, you already know, because you heard me, that I don't know a thing about it. I rely on the experts that are here with us today. So make sure you get in touch with them, to be honest, because I won't be able to help much, unfortunately. So just like to, before I say goodbye, thank very, very much our speakers. Nick, you can't see, but he's there and he's listening. Inga, of course, as well, and Paul, thank you very much. You guys have been with us for the 3 days. You've been wonderful. It's been great working with the SolarCoin team. Just be part of the community, I suppose. If we help each other, then we'll grow faster. So big thanks for everybody that's been here, and big thanks to you guys, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.